during the Frankly Speaking show. On your computer, look to the right of the video. That's your live chat hub. Something box. Here is how to comment during the Frankly Speaking show. On your computer, look to the right of the video. That's your live chat hub. Click the Say Something box at the bottom, type your message, and hit enter. Boom, you're live. On the mobile app, it's just as easy. Tap the live chat button right under the video to open the window. Pro tip, if you're in full screen mode, tap the screen once and hit the chat icon to see messages without leaving the action. Can't type? Check two things. Make sure you're signed in and see if subscribers only mode is on. You might need to sub and wait a few minutes. Keep it respectful, follow the mod's rules, and have fun.
The National Housing Trust, NHT, is celebrating its 50th anniversary. The National Housing Trust, NHT, is celebrating its 50th anniversary. Frankly speaking, no one can claim it has not made a meaningful impact on the Jamaican state. First, developing and financing housing schemes and individual house and land purchases. Frankly speaking, in recent years, the NHT has taken on a role not contemplated in its initial charter or by its formers, being a source for $11.4 billion a year to help support the government's finances. Good day, I'm Franklin McKnight. We have two trade unionists with us today. Welcome to Vincent Morrison, President of UCASE, Union of Clerical and Supervisory Employees, and St. Patrice Ennis, General Secretary of the Union of Technical and Supervisory Personnel, UTAS, and President of the Joint Confederation of Trade Unions. Welcome to the regular panelists, Winnie Anderson Brown and Desmond Richards. Winnie continues with the AI treat today. You'll hear from her. Thanks to you, our valued viewers and listeners, for joining us. Please remember, we invite your comments and questions throughout the program. Just follow the instructions given earlier. But before we go to our guests, frankly speaking, I don't want to forget this important issue or it to be lost in the rest of the discussion we're having. The Minister of National Security, Dr. Horace Chang, made a statement characterizing Jamaicans for Justice, JFJ, as, quote, living off blood money. That, frankly speaking, was beneath Dr. Chang. Dr. Chang is not one to be taken over the edge by baying and yapping tongues. He's, after all, Security Minister and should withdraw the comment that could well sully his reputation, a reputation built up over so many years of good public service. And by the way, frankly speaking, the police fatal shootings continue at a bewildering and worrying pace. Here's an INDECOM release issued on Friday about one of the more recent instances. And if we can see that, and Winnie, you can read it for us. All right, can I put it back, Joshua, so I can read it? Maybe Winnie is not able to see it. Today, February 27, this is a release from INDECOM. The Independent Commission of Investigations, INDECOM, was notified and responded to commence independent investigation into the circumstances of a triple police shooting incident in Coral Gardens, St. James. triple police shooting incident. The incident was a result of a police operation which was conducted on February 26 after 11 p.m. The 3 deceased men have not been identified. 19 persons have now been shot and killed during the month of February, that is up to Friday, up until February 22nd, 2026, by members of the security forces. Year to date, 47 persons were shot and killed. All right, we're going to take it there because we don't want it to take over our discussion. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. And I must commend Horace Helps, who yesterday, or today, Sunday, in his Sunday Sips in OUR, that online news and opinion station, media house, Helps also pointed to this can't continue. Can't continue. We have had enough. We have had enough, and it should stop. Now to the matter at hand. The NHT. We'll start with Mr. Vincent Morrison. Is he with us? Mr. Morrison, I want to get your reaction to the continued drawdown. He's not with us as yet. Not seeing Vincent Morrison. Maybe we have to start with Mr. Ennis, St. Patrice Ennis. Not seeing Mr. Morrison as yet. We're expecting him. Mr. Ennis, are you with us? Yes, St. Patrice Ennis. So Ennis, we want to ask you what's your reaction to the continued. Yes, we want to ask you to the continued, your reaction to the continued drawdown of $11.4 billion a year from the NHT.
Okay, am I audible? Are you hearing me now?
Yes, we are hearing you. We are hearing you.
Okay. Of course, as you and your other panelists and many of your viewers would realize, is that the NHT was set up for a specific purpose. It was set up in 1976 to provide housing solutions for its contributors and mainly workers. When you look at the constitution of the NHT board during that time, most, or if a significant amount of its directors were made up of persons who were part of the trade union movement. If we should look at it today, I believe you might only find one trade unionist now being a part of the NHT's board. That is a significant departure from how it was set up and that in itself should give some indication of the direction in which we are going. Largely, it was born out of the ideas of the trade union movement, and as you all know our history, we left the plantation and we got nothing. And without land, we had no housing, and so with our continued deficit to this day of demand outstripping supply, we, even today, despite increase in housing solutions and NHT providing many solutions over the years, we have not kept pace with the demands. So as a trade unionist, we really regret the move to amend the NHT Act in 2013 that enabled or allowed the government to benefit this $11.4 billion annually, and now it is earmarked to even benefit for the next 5 years. Thus far, already to the coffers, the consolidated fund, approximately $150 billion. I think to be exact, about $148 billion has been taken out of the NHT to provide support or budgetary support to the government going into the consolidated fund. So we ruled that day when the act was amended because it was set up to provide housing solution, and we are deviating from its mandate, and we see no end in sight for it to return to its original mandate to provide housing solutions. We already know from the Minister of Finance comments in her presentation recently that for the next 5 years, the government intends to continue taking $11.4 billion out of the NHT, bringing it at the end of 2030-31 to over $200 billion would be taken from the NHT's coffers. When we already have a deficit of over 100,000 housing and would need to at least build 15 or so thousand or so more houses per year just to try and keep pace with what the demand is, and we are falling woefully short of that number. So it is something that we do not support, and it's something that does not support the mandate of our financial crisis. So
and you know, there are people who argue. There are people who argue that this is a little quibbling that we're going on with, because the same money that is being taken from the NHT is being used for the benefit of the broader Jamaicans, people who have houses or don't have houses. How do you respond to that? In other words, if the government were not able to take this 11.4 billion from the NHT again, for example, this year, and you have pointed out that is from 2013, this has been going on, they would have to get it from somewhere, and most likely from taxes again on people. So is this quibbling? Is this us dancing around the fact that the money is going to be used for Jamaicans?
Well, if we're going to do that, call it what it is. Just call it a tax. So this didn't start with us. We said this is to provide housing solution. So we must make up our mind as to what we're doing. Then you just call everything, forget about what this tax for, what that tax for, but this is what was intended. And remember, the employers also contribute to this.
Yes.
Employers and the workers contribute, and already the employers, because it is not being primarily used, are not used for housing as it was intended. Already there are many employers saying that they should be getting their monies back.
And that is a reasonable position, because they're making a contribution specific to the housing of their workers, of workers generally. But you pointed out earlier that the influence, I suspect, of the trade unionists, that influence has deteriorated or has been lessened over the years. What is being done now by the trade union groups, and you are the head of the trade union grouping, what is being done now to have a say, to have your influence exerted on the government?
Well, I think just this year we had about, say last year we had at least two, I think it was R3. I know Senators Yale and
Lambert Brown.
I'm not sure if Lambert Brown, but I know that Granville Valentine was a member of the board. I don't believe those two are no longer members of the board, because you have a tenure, you have a period, a maximum period up to which you can serve. I think that has expired. I think Teacher Clark Griffiths from the JCAC has been appointed, but over the years, trade unionists, as I said, their numbers were significant on the board, because as you knew what the mandate was and what the objective was when it was set up to provide housing solution to workers. Today, we only have one member from the trade union movement that is now a member of the board. your question is, what do we do? Of course, we will make representation to the powers that be, in particular the Prime Minister, in whose ministry the NHT rests, to revisit that position and to remind him what the intent of the NHT was. And if that is if any scintilla of that intent remains, then the representative of that body should be at the table or somewhere in the mix in terms of how NHT expenditure and how its business is to be run. And so we definitely would be making representation in that regard for the Prime Minister to revisit the constitution or the complement rather of the board, so that we can have more trade unionists on it, and so that the workers' interests can be provided and the solutions
Desmond?
that are and the money spent on is the gap. There's a gap between the revenue intake and the amount spent on housing. That gap is increasing as we speak, and we would like it to go in the opposite direction.
I am wondering if the trade union movement could mobilize its members to get the government's attention on this matter, because the fact that the workers are significant contributors to the fund, the money that is being taken by the government is the workers' money. The workers have a significant input in that. So I am wondering, Mr. Ennis, if the unions could mobilize its members in order for the workers to get the government's attention on this matter.
Mr. Ennis?
Well, definitely, Brother Desmond. And yes, and I'm saying there is congruence there with what was just expressed by Brother Desmond. In terms of seeking audience, I intend to ask that at least from the Confederation, there is a representative as an umbrella organization that represents the majority of the labor movement in the country, at least 11 unions. That body should have a voice on the NHT. We know that during the imbroglio that existed with the Ottomani thing, Helen Davis White, who was the president then, resigned. And since then, there has been no replacement from the JCTU. So we indeed intend to make some overtures with respect to representation on the NHT board, so that we can have a say in its workings. And so that is indeed one of the intent.
Joshua is still trying to reach Vincent Morrison, who, as I said, we expected to be here. Sennis, do you get a sense of helplessness of the not just of the trade union movement now, but of the broader society in dealing with this NHT issue? Because it moved from the PNP administration, where it started in 2013, at that limited thing, then they advanced it again. They went back to Parliament and they've gone back, and they're going back now. The President JLP-led administration is going back now for another 4 to 5 years. Is there a sense of helplessness that you feel, or that people might feel, that we can't do anything about it?
Absolutely not. If you understand where our industrial relations started, persons who are involved with advancing labor, the movement, and workers' rights understand that our industrial relations started on the plantation. It didn't start in 1938. And if we understand how long we have been struggling to get where we are not easily disappointed. We know what we are struggling for, and our struggles are long. We don't necessarily expect to overcome or surmount our obstacles overnight. We have been struggling for hundreds of years, We are at a point now, and this is another obstacle which we believe we must surmount. It is not about just the labor movement. The history, our work relation is our history. It is all a part of us. It is that some of us who decide to be at the vanguard of it have to deal with it day to day, and it's at the forefront of all that we do. But we are never necessarily overwhelmed or believe that we are helpless. We may have obstacles, but we are resilient and we continue in our struggle, notwithstanding.
But do you see a way out right now? Desmond, jump in if you like. Do you see a way out now that something can be done rather than cream off all? As you pointed out, there is $140 billion that has been taken out already.
Brother McKnight, if you understand where we're coming from, we are people who left the plantation with nothing. We are talking about having an institution, one of the only such institution in the world, wherein monies are deducted nationally from all workers and employers to go into a fund or go into an institution that is to provide housing solutions to its populace. I would ask you to name me. So we have made struggles. We have made our model over the years. So not because we have some hiccups, no, we cannot resolve them or find ways of addressing them and feel helpless. That's not where we are. We are at a point where we have some difficulties, and yes, they have, in my mind, encroached in terms of amending the laws in 2013 and further stated this year to continue for another 5 years. But to say that we are helpless, that is not the case. What we would say, we will continue to do what we need to do to have these actions overturned.
What do you say that to a response I got from an economist this week, that there's a lot of need for housing in Jamaica, but there's not any great demand. And let me explain that. And I was hoping to have him here, but he explained it this way. There's a great need for housing in Jamaica, but no great demand. He said effective demand means your ability to purchase. And the fact is that the workers' wages are so low that they can't purchase those houses. So when we're talking about, as you said earlier, there's so much demand and we don't have any housing. It's not true, he's arguing. We don't have any real demand because the workers' wages are too low. How would you respond to that?
Well, there is a demand. The fact that workers' monies may not be able to purchase the houses at its current cost doesn't mean that you cannot find other ways or have other means and method at reducing costs, or to find different kinds of construction method and so on to build houses for people. We know in other countries there are subsidized housing depending on where the worker is, and they are talking about even rentals. You can look at different ways. Not everybody may need to own a house. In other countries, in some countries like Germany, I don't believe most of its populace own a house. They rent. So there are other ways of occupying or having a residential place. But the issue is to provide housing, whether it is by rental, whether it is by ownership, Europe, where people can rent or come together as a family to sustain some form of payment for a house. So there are ways and means. And that is what I'm saying. We need to be creative. We need to look at what happened in other countries to see how we can find housing solutions for our populace.
And let me remind the economist. Frankly, let me remind that economist. In 1976, I was at the arena when Michael Manley announced the NHT. Let me remind him that in 1976, the workers in Jamaica could not afford housing. And that was one of the reasons why the administration at the time came up with the trust in an attempt to make it possible for those at the bottom, those lowly paid workers, to access housing. That was the fundamental thinking behind the job. So the fact that the workers, the houses that are being built now are out of the reach of the workers. This is not new, because wages in Jamaica has been very, very low for decades now.
And I wanted to add that, and the point was made earlier, that you can always pool funds. So you don't just look at individuals. They may need to change the number of persons that can pool together to buy a house. But usually several persons come together in.
Well, I think Winnie, I think that up to three right now, Mr. Ennis, up to three people can come together, Winnie, and I think that there was also some suggestions about rent and buy, and you know, there have been suggestions, Winnie, like that. But Mr. Ennis, is there? Desmond was talking to the wages issue a while ago.
Yes, Brother Franklin.
The wages issue a while ago, and I was looking at Jamaica's productivity. Isn't that matter of what people are paid a significant part of the issue to do with whether people can afford the housing? Isn't that a big part of it? Mr. Ennis, you hear me?
Apparently, he's not hearing.
We know, see, but yes,
he's on now, but I'm not seeing. Mr. Ennis?
Yes, we see him, but can't hear him now.
Yes.
So Ennis, they don't know if Joshua can reach him anyway.
I am not.
Maybe it's bandwidth. Maybe it's better for him to speak and not be seen. So that we can hear.
Maybe I'll turn off my camera. Maybe that I'm not here.
Yes, turn off the camera. Yes.
Yes.
Bandwidth. Yes. Better. That's better. Are you hearing us now? He's gone for the moment. But that matter of the demand, Desmond, and that you were talking about, what was the situation in 1976. This economist, a respected economist, and I'm trying to get him on next week to discuss that, was pointing out that we can always talk about and look around and see how the housing is bad. But the fact that a man is living in a particular type of housing, in a one-room situation, he has four members of his family, the place is breaking down, Chichi taking it up or whatever, doesn't mean that his situation represents demand, because he cannot afford anything else. And if he can't afford anything else, you can't claim that there's an effective demand for that house.
Well, you see, I have to take a different position on that, because one of the things that I keep on saying on this program and everywhere that I get an opportunity.
Sorry, Desmond. I just telling St. Patrice Ennis that we realize you are back, and we're coming back to you in a minute, Mr. Ennis. Yes, Desmond, go ahead.
No, I said I have to depart from that position, because one of the issues faced by Jamaican workers It's a matter of a Caribbean, but I am limiting my discussion to Jamaica. And it's the fact that the affordability issue is a main one. The other thing is that we need a serious land reform program to address the issue facing the working class in Jamaica, right? And therefore, until we address that matter, and the state must take the initiative to deal with this land reform program to make land accessible to the workers, to the working class
Desmond,
people who are the majority.
I want to comment on that, Desmond. Well, let me see if St. Patrice Ennis is hearing us now. Mr. Ennis, you hearing us now?
He's muted now. He's muted now. He needs to unmute.
Mr. Ennis, yes, I can see. Mr. Ennis, you're muted. You're muted.
Unmute.
You need to come off that now. You're muted.
Unmute.
Unmute, Mr. Ennis. Joshua, see if we can send him a message and get him to be unmuted. Mr. Ennis.
And
unmute.
And so far we observe that Joshua has not been able to get Vincent Morrison on the show.
Yes, and he's saying that Vincent is having some serious problem. But you're muted, sir. You're muted.
That's why we're not.
Mr. Ennis, you're muted. Joshua going to try to reach him. Desmond, that argument about land reform and so forth. There is even the NHT issue. What are people going to do when the parliament, because it's an act of parliament, when the parliament goes for a renewal for the next 5 years? There's nothing that the typical Jamaican is going to be able to do. There's nothing that you can advance. Now, you could advance land reform, provision of additional housing and so on, with 11.4 billion. You could make some serious, significant steps. Or with, if you make it a cumulative total, 140 billion, you could. So,
one of the problems, Frankly, that the Jamaican workers are not educated and prepared to address issues. In other words, the workers don't see themselves in a position where they can argue with government, right?
Hold on, Desmond. Let me ask St. Patrice if he's hearing us. St. Patrice, you hearing us now?
Yes, I'm hearing Brother Desmond.
All right, yes. As Winnie was saying, your bandwidth might not be able to take everything, but so this way is good. And let me come back to you, because Desmond and I were just arguing about some issues. And Desmond is just positing that the workers in Jamaica are not educated or organized enough to deal with issues of their own welfare, housing being one. How would you respond to that? You being in unionism for a while and in one of the recognized unions. How would you respond to that?
Well, there's always more work to be done.
That's a diplomatic argument, man. Type of argument which was needed before the present war. What?
Well, I don't know if we could say we are exactly where we want to be. So there's always work to be done in organizing. And of course, there's always work to be done in developing the consciousness of workers. But sometimes I believe we are harder than ourselves than most. When I look at what we have achieved as workers in Jamaica, in terms of we have no paternity leave in government, we have maternity leave that developed countries, even up north, don't have. So, when we talk about no employer being the final arbiter on employment in Jamaica, no employer can say leave and it be the final argument, because we have an IDT and a court that will put back people into work. That is why the ministry of Bob Zagrains' ministry have 2 permanent secretaries now. Where you ever see 2 permanent secretaries in one ministry, because they say he must go back to work. So that tremendous achievement of the labor movement that doesn't exist in I don't know which other country. I mean, where you're seeing those things. So I have to look at the total thing in terms of just focusing on where we may have gaps. But when I look at the overall picture, I don't see many doing much better than us, where that is concerned. But to answer the questions specifically in terms of whether we are where we need to be, no, I would agree that there's more work to be done in order to get the workers properly aligned with what we need to do. And that is one of the things you'll hear more about in recent time. Because what we are going to do, particularly with respect to public sector workers, is as the vanguard of the labor movement, is to gather workers, whether they are in an organized body or not, to come and let us sit together and talk about our issues, and so that we know what our common objectives are and that we can move in one accord in achieving them. And so, yes, I would agree to a certain extent that there's work to be done, as Brother Desmond has explained. If I sound diplomatic, I have some antecedents as a foreign service officer in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So maybe that's where.
Yes, sir. Yes, but let me just ask you again now to go back to this 11.4 billion take from the NHT. Do you see a position where the trade union movement could look at what this has done to the NHT, could look at what it could do to housing in Jamaica? Just look at, Desmond was talking about land reform, to look at what it could do, to look at how much more levels of subsidy, levels of land subsidy, and so on, that could be possible. I don't know that anybody has done the work to indicate. Go ahead.
Look, for example, in the public sector, I don't know if you know the Union estate out by Twickenham Park. That was built almost exclusively out of an arrangement with the government. Already in our public sector agreement with the government, they had to provide 20 acres in each parish to build houses for public sector workers, 20 acres in each parish. We have built houses already in Twickenham Park. That's why the name is Union Acres. And if you go in there, you will see the names of those avenues and streets named after trade unionists like Hugh Lawson, Shearer, Reginus, and so on. We go to Irwin Estate in Montego Bay. We have built 160 houses, again, Union Acres, for public sector workers, them providing 20 acres of land. We'll be doing the same thing and we're about to start in Trelawney again, and all over. Part of the problem in finding the land are moving as quick as we would like to is that a lot of squatting are on those land. To find 20 acres by itself sometimes in Jamaica is not easy. Government land, that is. And so it takes a while, and with the legal gymnastics that you have to do to acquire it. But we have started, and so the issue of land, yes, we have that in writing from the government, and work has started. Not only that, we also, in terms of the sort of arrangement that we have with the government through our collective labor agreement, is that we recognize that in some of the parishes, in rural parishes, some families may have land, and what they need is a little assistance, as well as in some, what they need is just the land. And because we are creative people, they will find their ways and means to construct their own little dwelling. So there are myriad ways.
But Mr. Ennis, I'm not making light or putting down the involvement of the unions over the time. As you have said, it was the NHT was a whole worker sentiment. Vincent Morrison was here, was giving a preview of what was happening at the time, where with Carlisle Dunkley and himself and others at the time before in the mid-70s. I'm not belittling. What I'm saying is, I haven't seen, maybe you have seen it, I haven't seen a united, orchestrated position driven by facts and details, about what this money has meant for possibilities of development in the NHT, and B, what it could mean for Jamaican people. So I don't just mean union estates and 20 acres of, I mean, what, Mr. Ennis, $140 billion, cumulatively, is a lot. It could change the face of Jamaica housing. And that's what I'm asking, if you gentlemen and people are prepared to debate that. And Winnie has some comments, and Winnie, I don't know if you can take those comments.
Yes,
No,
let me go with Keith first. That seems to be a lame duck answer. The truth is, the poor will never able to buy a house in Jamaica again, even the way the PM gave the reason for extracting the money from the fund. And let's go to Marshall Lee, who says, I'm deeply concerned that the NHT has implemented a policy that requires contributors to attend at certain commercial banks in order to access their statutory benefit. That's an issue specifically for NHT refunds.
I didn't know of that. And you know about that particular commercial banks? You would know to that nitty-gritty of stuff.
No,
Mr. Ennis? I don't know that. I know that they have been assuring people that their refunds are going to be done on time and so on, but I don't know about the banks and those particular positions. Yes, sir. So I was saying, you wanted to respond, Mr. Ennis, to my comments there, and the comment that poor people will never be able to own a house.
No, I do. Well, that some of us will. Well, indeed, as we look at certain sectors of our economy, that would appear to be the case. If we look at the current situation in terms of what we earn and what housing, the cost of housing, and as you know, it is escalating every year. So that is not an unreasonable statement to make. We find that, for example, a minimum wage earner and persons in that rank and even above find it difficult to almost impossible to acquire any form of housing solutions. And so we are cognizant of that, and I don't believe that's an unreasonable statement to make. And that is why we say that we have to find other ways and means to satisfy the no demand. As I've outlined before, there are some other ways we can do so. But one of the things the government have to do is intervene into the market, because the rate at how our housing price increase, I don't think most people who own houses now could not afford to repurchase those very houses that they are in. So we do have a problem, and we do have to find a different way and mean how we construct, how we find housing solutions for workers, because we do have a problem.
Boy, I've been hearing that argument for the last 10, 15, 20 years, Mr. Ennis, that we have to find a way to get different material, that we have to find a way of getting new financing, that we have to find a way for this, that, and the other. And it is not changing. What has changed is that the NHT's ability to provide greater and greater subsidies, levels of subsidies or rates, is diminished by the continued extraction of $11.4 billion a year from it. That's what has changed.
Why do you say that, Brother McKnight? If we look at about 2013, 2010, 12, it is indeed the case that there are more housing solutions, a start in housing solutions being done now than we were doing, say, 15 and so years ago, or over 10 years ago. That is indeed the case, where we were averaging 2 or so thousand housing starts a year. We are doing closer to 7, 8, 9, 10,000 in some cases. So that is indeed happening. If you're looking at when Morris Guy spoke was last minister, he said, there was a deficit of over 400,000. Now we're talking about 100,000. So there has been some progress. But while we say so, and these are data, I mean, instead of just saying what we think, these are data that people can look and analyze themselves. But at the same time, the housing trust is collecting more money than it has ever collected before. Revenues have increased significantly. It is almost a $300 billion entity. When you compare it to other financial institutions, including banks, it is probably the third largest. So it can do much more. And so I take your point that $11.4 billion that is being taken out of the NHT and put into the consolidated fund for other purposes could go a far way in eliminating and assuaging the anxiety and need of Jamaicans with respect to their housing solutions. And that is why I am vehemently opposed to that amendment in the law that enabled the government at that time and this one to continue doing what it is doing. And so I am steadfast against that, whichever government is in power, because I believe that was a wrong thing to do, and we see no end in sight because it is now being treated in the budget paper as a recurring revenue.
Well, you know something, Franklin, and the question of wages, I would like to ask Mr. Ennis to tell us what is the current situation with the wage talks with the government, because as you know, the unions are engaged with wage talks with the government, and we tell us what is the latest on that, Mr. Ennis.
Well, we will be saying something very shortly, and we are just organizing ourselves. Hopefully, we can have a press briefing in the week to come. We believe that the action so far, many of our trade unions has found that we are not being given the respect or treated with the respect. So we are not so much concerned about what people do and what they say and how the government reacts. What we are more concerned about is how we are going to respond. And because sometimes we have very little to do with how a person relate to us.
How important is this respecting, Mr. You know, the unions argue respecting respect card a lot. How important? Just tell us, when we hear you say we're not getting the respect that is due, what do you really mean? Explain that to us a little bit.
Well, our labor relations code, you speak to the National Housing Trust being 50 years old. We should also mention that our labor relations code is also 50 years old this year, and it speaks to work being respected. And so this is not something that was coined by me. It is something that is at the very beginning of our relations code, that work and workers ought to be respected. And as far as I know, and that is something that has been passed by Parliament, and as far as I know, it has not been amended. So when the trade union movement say that we are relating exactly to the Labor Relations Code of 1976, it is not new speak. So when we send in our claim, for example, and the government writes to us to say they will respond to us in the first week of January, and now the end of February, we don't get a response. Well, I believe it is not unreasonable to say that's not, respectful. And so while that may happen, my position is how we respond. And so
you see that as lack of respect or incompetence? You see that as lack of respect for the unions or just incompetence of the government system?
Well, I don't know if it is my business to go and know how these things happen, whether somebody is paying attention and not paying. What I have to look at is the actions. And yes. I don't know. I can't determine if there was a motive or if there is some ineptitude on their part. I don't know. And that is what that is why I say what is more important here is how we respond to whatever action is coming our way.
Yes. Okay. Well, we want to thank you. I don't know if Desmond has any other questions for you or Winnie has any comments. I don't see her right now. Just want to hear your final word, your final thoughts on the NHT. Winnie, I don't know if you can pick up. Is she there? Mr. Ennis, can you give us your final words on the NHT's position now and the union? You are head of the confederation. Where you see it going?
Well, in short, one of the things we need to do is have a voice back on the board where decisions are being made. Because for things like these to be made, the board would have to okay this first. And so if we are not properly represented, then I don't believe the workers' interests will be taken into account in a manner that it ought to if its representative body is not sitting at the table. This is what the NHT was set up to do, to find housing solution on behalf of the workers, and a significant amount is being taken out for other purposes. Not only that, we are unable to really see NHT going into the market, providing the sort of cheaper housing or looking at alternative ways the way we would like. So all of those things are things that we would like to do, and we can do that better if we were at the table, being able to offer our insight as to how the NHT should run. In the interim, and while we go forward, I think we would still be voicing our objection to the government's position. We recognize that both administrations has taken a similar path in terms of raiding the NHT for budget support, and that is not a stance that either trade union is support, whichever administration is doing it.
Okay. We want to thank you very much and wish you continued strength and insights in your position over there at Joint Confederation that you continue to lead. And we look forward, Desmond, try to get a jump start on others with regard to what's happening with the negotiation. But I will look forward to hearing in a few days what the situation is with negotiations with the government.
Thank you much, my brother. And
thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we just want to say to viewers again that we should have had Vincent Morrison of UCASE. What Joshua is indicating to us that he had some significant issues, and hence the reason he was not here. And Winnie, we're not seeing you. Still want to leave the comments for you to take on. And if you're just joining us, we're coming on to the end of the program. I wanted to say, Desmond, what was your views on the comments of the security minister with regard to Jamaicans for Justice and their continued advocacy for wearing of cameras and focus on fatal shootings?
Well, you know, I want to tell you something that I was taken by surprise, because I know Dr. Chang for many decades now, and he's not someone who speaks like that.
That's not him,
because,
No,
not him, right? Because for him to say, you see, one of the things is that the human rights groups, they were established, and they are established to protect human rights, you know. That is what they were established to do.
Their thing. That's their thing.
That is their thing. They are not.
Yeah,
they are not,
you can't curse the baker, Desmond, if he's baking bread every day and going on like he should be doing pants, cutting pants and dress. He's a baker, so that's what he's going to be doing, baking bread.
Right. And therefore, Dr. Chang, I think I am trying to have words with him to find out, because I think he should withdraw those statements. Jamaicans for Justice and no organization in Jamaica is living off any blood money. The fact is,
and if that were so, Desmond, it would be his duty to go through all the procedures to make sure that that is not happening, and throw the police at them, throw the law at them.
What
blood money? What would he mean by that? What could he mean by that?
Well, I I don't know
I
what
don't
he
want to
means.
guess. I want him to. I want him either to withdraw it or to explain it. And as you said,
Yes.
that's not Dr. Chang.
No. What Dr.
All right,
Chang
Winnie.
needs to tell the country, what Dr. Chang needs to tell the country is what happened to those body cams that the police received recently. Are they wearing body cams now? That is what we want to know.
And as Indicom said last week, Friday, that up to the Thursday night operation, they didn't have any body cams. Thursday night operation where they killed three people in one street.
And why the police are not wearing body cams now? They have body cams. Why they are not wearing it? That is what we want to hear.
True. Winnie, I wonder if you can take back some of those comments, which we lost it there for a little while, and then move into AI for us. Take us into AI. Those comments.
Once you do that, you're almost at the end. Let me see. Here's a comment. Marsha Lee White says, yes, NHT loans are now disbursed through banks and other financial institutions. And Owen Richards says, does the statute that established the NHT allow that kind of withdrawal from the fund? I think they changed the law to
Yes, they
accommodate
made the amendments.
Yes.
Mr. Richards, they made the amendments in the parliament from 2013, and they go on renewing it every time. As a friend of mine has said, no, the government is as an addiction. You can't get them off of this. Don't expect them to get off this. It's their addiction now, and they're going to keep going after it. And I comment with
Keith says maybe it has reached a stage of no return. And I quite agree with that. It is now a part of the consolidated fund and can be used as...
That's what the guys are saying. The guys are saying that either party, no matter what you hear them saying, that's where they would be going. All right, Winnie, we have taken up... Oh my God, we're running into so much of your time, Winnie. You're going to tell us about this the song in a minute?
The time is up, so it's pointless saying anything else. Just a reminder that AI can be used to help advocacy, and you'll be able to hear a part of the song if you can.
And it's advocacy we're talking about now. That's our show for today. We thank you all, viewers and listeners, for joining us today. Remember to subscribe if you have not yet done so. And remember, you may watch the show again anytime on the Frankly Speaking Jamaica YouTube channel. Thanks to Desmond Richards, Winnie Anderson Brown, presenters, and Joshua Black, producer and graphic artist. We thank St. Patrice Ennis, man at the head of the Jamaica Confederation of Trade Unions. We respect him, and we rate him for the work that he's doing. And we are sorry that we didn't get Vincent Morrison. He had agreed to be with us on the show, but there were some technical issues for him. On behalf of all of us, I'm Frankly McKnight. Until then.